up, everybody? I'm Gilflo.
I'm Lord Screech.
We're the Video Game Archivist, and today we are doing our review of the fifth game in the series, Hexen. Alright, so let's talk about Hexen. Let's talk about the beginning. So I got Hexen. It's probably one of my first couple games I got for the 64. I didn't have a memory card. I didn't have internet access other than dial-up. GameFAQs really wasn't a thing back then. It was, but I didn't use it very often because dial-up internet, right?
Yeah.
You have to wait till your mom's off the phone before you can get on. So anyway, let's get into it and start talking about it. Let's start with the new game. So you have 3 different classes you can pick. Mage has a shooty stick right off the bat, but doesn't really do a lot of damage. Cleric's kind of in the middle. Fighter has very little magic capabilities.
But high strength.
Honestly, looking at it, I don't totally understand the magic being low, because I mean, he uses everything just as well as everyone. I don't know if they're more powerful. Like,
I mean, it could be just like some generic stuff that they put up there to profile the character. Because I know a lot of the magic items, so to speak, or half the time are just literally, literally from, excuse me, just, the different small items on the C for the C buttons.
Gotcha. So,
but at the same time, it could be based on the ammo count. I mean, we played it through with the fighter, but
just the fighter. So let's pull this up. So obviously you have the different types of fighter. You have Titan, Berserker, Warrior,
which is actually just the skill level.
So if you change classes, it's the same thing levels, but you get different to your class. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a nice touch.
So we played through them normal. You get a little bit of story in between each level, which is pretty cool. Alright, let me start. Controls are pretty tight. I didn't have any issues during the playthrough with control. You do go zooming.
Oh, yeah, the old school. Yeah, it's old school, Doom clone or just old school FPS in your own. You do run essentially.
So anyway, let's go ahead and start talking about it. Why don't you go, Screech, while I run through and then I'll review my notes here.
Sure. Well, I know with it was one of your first games. Me, I rented it once, and as a kid, I couldn't get into it, but at the same time, I literally had the thing. But I mean, as we were playing through it, I mean, it definitely has its charms where it's like, okay, you're going through, but instead of being like the usual running gun type Doom clone, you're actually like, okay, you got fantasy, and you actually eventually find actual weapons instead of just being, okay, now you got the pistol, now you got the shotgun, that sort of thing. Of course, even with the fighter, it's kind of interesting to find with the fighter, of course, you got his bare fist, then you find an axe that's just more empowered. But then his final weapons are the ones that actually get you long distance weapons.
Yeah. Alright.
But after that, I mean, I will say it's interesting. I will say, just as a small criticism now, I'll just bring it up with oh yeah, the trapdoors. Yay, death by door. No, but I will say with the items, that you actually pick up just the usable items. It's one thing for what they call the fletchet, which essentially is the game's grenade type weapon, and also your healing flask, which are the corpse flask. But then they get so many different weapons, like was that the Piginator? I forget what it was.
There's a bunch
Porculator,
of them.
yeah. And I will say it's a little too many of them, where it's like, okay, if you're not paying attention, you might have to write it down. It's like, okay, what does what if you don't have the instruction manual?
So that's one quirk I will talk about that I don't really like is there's a ton of items, and some of them you don't really get a lot of. So your first playthrough, if you're not willing to use the item until later, you're never going to know what they do, and it doesn't matter because you're not going to get a lot of them.
Yeah.
Multiple playthroughs almost required to learn what everything does, unless I don't have the instructions, so I don't really know what that does.
But I will say with multiple player, it's one thing with this game, it actually does lend to it, is it does have replay files, so you can play as the 3 different classes. So you can actually see, okay, what different weapons they got. And I know near the end, we just, use the cheats just to see the weapons. And yeah, it kind of sucks that the cleric feels like the worst to start off as, because this mace just doesn't feel that weighty, it takes too many hits. But then you get his ultimate weapon, and he just summons an army of ghosts.
Yeah.
Just out of fucking nowhere. It's ridiculous.
Well, he also can't really do a lot of damage. He can't take a lot of damage. And he has to get up close and personal until he gets his second weapon, which you don't get until the second level. So, could be a turnoff. So I called it Melee Doom when we first started. It's not quite. It's kind of got its own charm, its own personality, but it still has the Doom clone
Feel.
movement. Yeah. Each class is unique, but it's totally different balance, but the game doesn't change for each class. So I feel like there's certain situations where each class will do better than the other.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's times that like you're just going to get wrecked as a certain class.
Yeah, at least with like starting wise, I mean the mage is obviously the weakest, you can't get hit. But at least with the game's, Doomcloak's speed, at least he's got a distance weapon off the bat that actually uses no ammo.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, at least he can survive that way. With the fire, though, you can just fucking run in and beat the shit out of it.
So I want to talk about the puzzles in the game. Most of the puzzles are just find a switch, hit the switch, and do it.
Yeah.
Some of them are too well hidden too early in the game. I remember playing back in the day that there's a wall, you can look at it, and there's no switch on it. But as soon as you walk up to it, the switch reveals, and that's where I got stuck as a kid, not knowing what to do. So, maybe I kind of want to ding it a little bit because some of the puzzles without a walkthrough suck. They really do. Other puzzles are great. They're fun to move through and all that, but there are a couple puzzles that just hurt the game's quality.
Yeah, and just for me, it's like when it comes to the puzzles, I will say, I mean, granted, the difficulty of the puzzles are literally just based on where did they hide the switch. It isn't literally, okay, hit this switch, go through this gate, and then, kind of really figure out as a puzzle. It's literally just
you hit a
find
switch,
it.
Find it. Yep.
Yeah, and obviously, I think, pretty much levels, even the first level, just kind of get through and like increases the amount of switches you have to hit for the end to get to the final part of the level.
Yep. All right, cool. So I think that at least for the fighter playthrough, the game was well balanced until we hit level 5, which we'll show off here in a second. Once you figure out the controls, the game's not too bad. Oh, okay, I forgot there's a flying guy there.
Yeah, actually, it looks like he popped up because of Mage, because they didn't pop up with Cleric or
Yep.
just as a little balance, it looks like.
If you do choose to play this, whether you play it on N64 or PC, definitely save often.
Oh, yeah.
You can pretty much save whenever you want, so you can restore your save whenever you want.
And that's definitely, like, kind of in some ways an old school feel when it comes to, like, the old computer-style games. And,
Yep.
I mean, I know we're playing this on the N64, but to me, that's not a detriment to this game.
I'm going to be honest, I played it on PC. Without modding it, I'd rather play it on N64 and have better graphics.
Which is kind of funny when you think about it.
So, difficulty ramp level 1 and 2 are fine, minus a couple puzzles that we had to look up. Stage 3, the enemy, you get the wizard enemy, which ramped the difficulty to insane amounts. Level 4, what did level 4 introduce them?
Level 4, honestly, I mean, no, it didn't introduce enemies. It had the swamp monsters, it had, a couple of the wizards and everything. But I will say, at least when it comes to, levels 2 for 4, you'll definitely have that rough start right off the bat, where it's okay.
Once you get a hold of the level, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Show the trap there.
Oh, yeah, let me get the one with the fletch. Make it worth it. And then it's just shoots at you. It goes, hey, you dared to get an item. We're going to just straight up. What's the play disappear? Oh,
So you will need a memory card for this. Warning ahead of time, it's 90 pages. If you have the normal
regular old school
card, it's 3/4 of it. You're not going to be able to save much else.
Yeah,
just be aware of that.
Yeah, it just reminds me of playing Hitman back in the day on the GameCube. It's oh yeah, if you have just a regular memory card, you're basically guaranteed dedicated for Hitman, and only one of them.
Yep. So there's not much enemy variety, but the enemies as you go through do evolve mechanically. Certain enemies will get a ranged attack later on, certain enemies will do more damage later on, things like that.
I know, yeah.
The beginning, that's what made 3 and 4 so hard, is the lack of healing. There's just not much healing, where the first couple levels, there's tons of it.
It's just plenty, and you don't have to worry about carrying them.
So, let's talk about the end of the game. You want to go ahead and load our save?
Yeah. Game fires. Lord, let's hopefully it doesn't.
Of course it did.
Yep.
It's because we have the wrong one.
Oh, yeah, okay, never mind.
Go ahead.
Let's go ahead and turn it off real quick. Because, early on we got impatient because we're used to nowadays. And it's back in the day, loading. If it doesn't tell you to, okay, now it's the time to change it, it gets sensitive. which is just a detriment to old school hardware.
So we're gonna show you the beginning of level 5. Unfortunately, we didn't save before the boss because we hit level 5 and used cheats. Basically, the game became.
It just ramped up. Like, it wasn't just, like levels 2 through 4 where it has that initial ramp up. It's like, no, we played through the initial ramp up, and then it's like, okay, let's go ahead and cheat just so we can see the
Let's
end.
pull it up. Yep. And then the final boss. The final boss has probably 100 enemies in a room at a time.
Oh yeah.
That's a little exaggerating, but the room's filled with enemies.
Let's use the shotgun sword, because why not?
You need to get some mana if you want to do that.
Oh, never mind.
So these guys, yep.
Yeah, the wraiths.
They will just launch and you'll watch Spleech get just torn to shreds here.
Yeah. Boots of speed. Porculator, which is kind of a funny weapon because it turns things into pigs.
And then you kill them in one shot.
Yeah.
So I mean, with good planning, this could be done, but it's not friendly the first time through.
Oh yeah. And it is definitely, as we went later on, it's like, okay, at first it feels like, okay, maybe this is just like normal where, okay, you get through the clay fort, but then as you go through like the different actual special sections, it's like, no, they keep the enemy ramp up that high.
Yep. Alright, so let's move on to how we rate games. If you haven't seen one of these before, it's pretty simple. 50 is nothing special. I'm going to restart this so we don't have the monsters screaming in their ears.
Yeah.
So there's nothing good or bad about it. The game's just okay. Play it, have fun, but you're not going to really see anything good. 100's perfect. 1 is Superman 64. Foreshadowing. And that's pretty much it. So 50 is right in the middle. So let's go into our actual review for this.
Yep.
I gave it a 75 on the retro. I think the game was good when it came out.
Yeah.
Again, I think the puzzles hurt it more than anything.
Oh, definitely. And
just the lack of being able to look up the solution and getting stuck. I would just put this game down. I would have, which I did. That's
and same here. I mean, granted, I put it probably early on, but I rented the game, so
yeah,
a little less than that. Well, for me, obviously, the puzzles, I agree with the puzzles detriment, but I honestly rate it a little higher with nostalgia because it's like once you get into it in the stream, it's really enjoyable. Like, it isn't like, oh, this is a Doom clone, blah, blah, blah. It's, no, this might be a Doom clone, but this is actually really enjoyable, even back in the day.
It was really well made.
Yep.
Yeah. My biggest gripes with the game, again, are some of the hidden puzzles.
Yeah.
The very end of the game and its impossibility.
Yeah.
And the 90 pages on a memory card back then.
Oh, yeah, well...
If you had save files you wanted to keep, you just didn't save the game, which
was
my issue once I got a saver card. So anyway, that's our nostalgia. So how did it go? So Spleech and I disagree on this one. I didn't like this game when it came out. I love this game now. I gave it a 79. It's almost on that great... The end of the game for me ruined it, and you said you dinged it down because
the end of the game. Yeah, and also, just as a random note before I forget about it, I know one thing just as a random dot, is I know with the map setting, and this also helps with the nostalgia. Well, it doesn't necessarily hinder the nostalgia, because I know like when you played Doom back in the day, you could bring up the map and still play the game and have fun. This one, not so much, because like the map literally covers everything.
Yeah.
And even though you can still move around, you don't really have an orientation. But no, yeah, I literally docked it at the end of the game. It's because partly also the puzzles too, but that end of the game, it's that whole ramp up and then you have to fight for every room. And that, for me as a gamer, I just don't enjoy.
Yep.
And the funny thing is, originally, I was actually thinking of not rusting the game up, but it's that last level old school difficulty where they just ramped up for the sake of ramping up.
Yep.
That actually for me, it's a rust.
So overall, we gave the game a 76. That's all 4 of our scores combined. I enjoyed it.
Oh,
Had fun. It was definitely the longest of the games we played for one playthrough. It was 4 or 5 hours per stage. So I would say this game, if you don't cheat, is 20 hours per character.
Yeah.
As you learn it, I couldn't go back and play it again and remember anything that we did.
But it's basically you might be able to shave time if you just constantly go through a walkthrough.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one is definitely an investment.
So let me look up its current cost as of filming this on 10/21/2020. The game is currently going for, this is an eBay average, keep in mind, $14. So 100% would recommend, totally worth it for the price. And that's all I really have. You got anything else, Bleach?
Yeah, and I knew, like, later we looked up and saw there was a Heretic, because this is part of the Heretic series.
Yes, so this is the middle game of the 3.
Yeah, and then... And it's like, yeah, I think it's $20 on Steam, but yeah, if you
For
can get...
all of them.
Yeah, and that, granted, yeah, that has the value of it, but we've never played, but... $14 for this game is not bad at all.
Yep, I would actually recommend this version of it, because mapping keys in MS-DOS is not fun on a modern
Yeah,
computer.
and it's like, unless you're a heavy PC gamer, which we're both console gamers.
Yep. So that's it for us. We will catch you next review. See you.